welcome guys. Welcome to episode number 7. Man, I can't believe it's 7 already.
Yeah, it's pretty fast.
It's crazy. I'm your host, Jason Manerinter.
And I'm your co-host, David Liu.
And we got a special guest today, Gurkamal Kullar.
Yes, our old friend.
What's up, guys?
Childhood friend.
Yes.
Gurkamal Kullar. So, say something, Gurkamal.
What's up, guys? Yeah, I grew up with Jason, next door neighbors.
Yeah.
Next door neighbors.
We
yeah.
all went to high school
All
together.
High school.
Yep, I
Yeah.
remember that. He used to drive me home every day.
Yeah, Gurk used to drive me home too.
Yeah.
Yeah, Gurk or Akash just drive me home every day.
Yeah, that was
Have
sweet.
a whole lot of people home.
Yeah, I spent a lot of time. That was fun in the Escalade and in the G35.
No.
Yeah.
Whenever I had the Escalade, that thing was like just packed. Like
Yeah.
there'd be like,
All the time.
There'd be like too many people in there.
Yeah.
Like 12, 13 people. It'd take me like an hour and a half, 2 hours to get home because I had to drop everyone off at home.
Yeah, it was sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a little background history. So, yeah, before we get started with this, just want to introduce Gurkamal and kind of what we're going to be discussing about and kind of introduce him. So, Gurkamal, they have a lot of businesses that they run, multiple businesses, including a Best Western in Airdrie, 4 liquor stores.
Yeah.
But their whole family actually collectively have a lot more. And you guys also run a Dairy Queen, own and operate a Dairy Queen in Sage Hill.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah. Nolan Hill Stage. Yeah.
Nolan Hill. And he's also a father of 2, right?
Yes.
You got one more coming or what?
No, nothing right now. Nothing right now.
Not
Two's
at
a
the moment.
handful.
And what are their names?
Justin and Amaya.
Justin and Amaya.
Yeah.
They're cute kids.
Yeah.
Very cute kids. Very, very cute kids. So yeah, let's get that started. We got a lot. I don't even know which direction we're going to go.
Let's start at the beginning.
Let's start at the beginning, like usual, right?
Yeah.
I guess, how old were you, Gurkamal, when you first realized you guys had like a family business and you realized that you had to get into that role with your family?
Well, growing up in our family, we always had businesses. So like that was just something that we did. It was just never. It was nothing that was like so.
Like how old were you when you're like, okay, now I got to step into this business role of like a family business?
that
Yeah.
was later on. That was probably more into when we got into like the hotel side of things.
Yeah. This is probably after college, right?
Yeah, like I didn't. It was weird because like so a little back. So I had some other stuff going on at the time, right? So, I think me and Eric at the time had we had a company called Genesis Eon that used to do import, export of some liquor and stuff.
You know what? I kind of remember that.
So
I totally forgot about that. But yeah,
Yeah.
you guys had. I do remember this. You had alcohol beverage.
Yeah.
Like a wholesaler or something?
Yeah, wholesale. So me and Eric used to run Genesis Eon, which is so it was a funny story because like,
Eric's my brother, by the way.
Eric's
Yeah.
Jason's brother.
Yeah.
So how it started was like so I was it was so weird. It started because of Trump. So like
What?
it's kind of
Really?
weird like that. Yeah. So what happened was I was already like at this point I already knew that like I wasn't gonna do school or anything like that.
How old were you?
This is just after high school. So right after high school, I got my real estate license. I still. That's another story, but like,
You still
and then-
dabble in it?
Yeah, and then so I was going to kind of Mount Royal at the time, and then I dropped out of Mount Royal and I went to SAIT to do marketing. And at that point, like I think I did like a year, like a semester, 2 semesters there, and then I was like, you know what, like this isn't for me either.
Is that when you were taking international business?
International business
Yeah.
at Mount Royal, and then I did marketing at SAIT for like 2 semesters, and then I was like, yeah, this is like just. I felt like it was a waste of time for me.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
like, I
like
just
a
wanted. I
lot
just
of
wanted.
us here.
I just wanted to start going. Like
Yeah.
I was like, you know what, like I just want to start doing stuff, and I was already kind of like looking into like I liked international business. I liked like the import export of stuff. I know. So at that time, I already started kind of looking into like liquor because that's kind of the family background was like we had liquor stores at the
Yeah,
time.
you guys had a bunch of liquor stores. Yeah.
So my uncle, 96, 90, no, 97, we opened our first store. The family did. And then right next to the Bottle Depot on 16th Avenue there.
Yeah, that's on 16th Ave.
Transcanada.
16th
Bo-
Transcanada.
yeah.
It's like by that batting cage.
Home road.
Yeah.
Around there, Bonus Bottle Depot.
Yeah.
And so
96 is when they privatized the
it.
liquor
We
stores,
did
right?
it about a year later, 97 is when
Yeah.
they opened that first location. I think it was June 97. So I think we were like 21 years, 22 years. And
Crazy.
now.
So that was your first liquor store your family
Yes.
got?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But
So-
you weren't involved yet?
No.
No, okay.
So I was like 97 and then.
Oh yeah, you're probably like 10 years old at that
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. So that liquor.
Working the till.
Yeah. So that liquor
Hey,
background, right?
immigrants make your kids work young, man.
It was, man. Like for me, it's more the Bottle Depot. Like growing up, my dad used to like, it wasn't babysitters; they just bring us to work, and we used to just crush boxes in the back and stuff, and like,
Yeah. Old school.
Oh my god, dude! I vaguely remember that because we used to collect Coke points.
Yeah, Coke points.
Oh, from the bottles.
Yeah,
You
from the
pop 'em,
bottles, from
right?
Pop
Yeah.
Dude, we used to like
The plastic things.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Oh, we used to
I
get
read-
so many points because
Yeah.
like you're at the depot, right? And
Yeah.
like people were drinking bottles, and like who's actually cutting out the points of all the caps or pulling out the caps? So we used to sit
Yeah,
there
yeah, I
after
used to do
like
that too.
Yeah.
we all the back in the day used to throw the caps inside the hole, and there's a big bucket full of caps.
Yeah. I remember
So-
that. Yeah.
So we'd sit there and like
You'd pop 'em out.
pop the caps out.
Yeah, with like a butter knife or
Yeah,
something.
and then you'd have all these points, and man, we had so many points.
Yeah.
Like, and then we got so much stuff.
At that point, I think they were giving away like Discmans and stuff.
yeah,
right?
Discmans, we had so much stuff.
I remember that.
Clothing,
You
Like,
guys are cashing in.
Yeah.
yeah, any big prize we'd have from Pepsi or Coke at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's pretty sweet.
And then so back to like so for the liquor stuff, that's kind of like the first kind of business that I did was with Eric there, and then
So
On your own.
on your own, right?
Yeah.
So because like you guys, I remember you were distributing like it was like a vodka drink or something.
that was after.
Thriller.
Oh,
Thriller was after.
Okay.
So what happened was first me and Eric started. So Eric comes to me at the time and he's like, "Hey, Trump started his own vodka. We should bring it to Canada." And I was like,
What was it called? Trump?
"It's called Trump vodka." Right?
Interesting.
And I was like, "Okay." He's like, "Just like like how do you do it?" I was like, I'm like, "I know you have to set up an agency." Like I kind of knew that side already, so I was like, "Okay, well, let me call AGLC. Let me see what we need to do to get like our liquor license, right?
Yeah,
Our
yeah.
import." So I called AGLC, got all that figured out, and then it's like, "Okay, well, let's see if we can get Trump's vodka." I'm like, "Okay, well, let's first see if we can get this vodka." So we started reaching out to the company. We started calling them. We didn't get anything back, but in that search, we started finding other products, right? And I'm like, okay, well, you know what? This could be something that we can do. And then from there, we registered the company. We did all that stuff. So we got our import license for alcohol. And then through the search, finding companies, we found the guy's name is Raj Nanu. He runs, and so we started working with him from Edmonton. So he was doing, at the time, budget craft beer. So we started doing that, and we had the vodka, Mark's Vodka at the time. And so that's what me and Eric started selling. So we were going like knocking on liquor stores and like, hey, like, this is our thing. And, and it
So
took a while.
were you guys selling vodka or?
Yeah, we had vodka. No, this is before Thriller. So
Okay.
we had vodka.
Craft beer.
Yeah, it was like a budget craft beer. And then we had an actual craft beer from Mount Bigby, which is the brewery out in Revelstoke. So we were selling their stuff too. And then just before it all ended, we just landed. What was it? Not Dead Frog. It was I think it might have been Dead Frog. Yeah, and then we landed Dead Frog just before before me and Eric kind of decided we weren't going to do it anyways. Yeah.
Well, it's crazy because you guys were doing craft beers before everybody else was kind of doing craft beers.
Yeah, we were. And
So you guys were doing craft beers and had. Oh no, Thriller's later.
so Thriller was after.
Yeah.
So what happened was
Isn't
like
Thriller?
yeah. So Thriller
Energy?
was Thriller was the vodka energy.
That was
drink.
something that they created.
Oh, you
Yeah.
got jacked, man.
No, I did that. So what happened was, so at the time, me and Eric started doing pretty well,
Yeah.
right? And then, but what happened was one of our biggest suppliers at the time started having supply issues. There was like a family thing going on between them. There's, like again, we were dealing with smaller companies, right? So we couldn't get product, right? So we started doing really well. Like we were selling like pallets of stuff. Like
Crazy.
we started finally making it almost worth it. And then we had that supply issue. And then at the time, we were like, it was like, okay, Eric's going back to school. what am I going to do now, right? So at that time, I still enjoyed it. I was still doing it. So I created a new company, and then one of the biggest struggles we had was getting shelving space, right? So I was like, okay, I need to create a product that I can get shelving space from. So that's when I started reaching out to co-packagers, and I found a packager in Austria, and from Austria, that's where like Red Bull and everything kind of came from, and they were already doing vodka energy drinks. Right now, nothing was really on the market right now for vodka energy drinks. There was nothing on the market.
That's crazy.
So that's when I started Thriller, and that was like my vodka energy brand. Bought it, brought it down, got it like, you know, all the labels, everything, got it imported, got it listed here. Started, you know, it was just me by myself at the time, and we started doing the same thing, knocking on liquor stores' doors, getting listings, going through that whole process.
I remember you threw like a party or something at like a club.
What was that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was it like a Halloween or something?
Yeah, we did a Halloween party.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you guys were like sponsored it or something?
Yeah, we threw a
I
Halloween
remember.
party at, I think, what was the club name?
Was it on Stephen Ave?
It was on Stephen.
V Bar?
Ali used to run the place.
It was at like where Steak and Main is
Yeah,
now,
yeah.
on the corner there, on 5th and 8th.
Yeah.
I don't
I forget what it's
remember.
called now.
But yeah, so that was a crazy experience too. Like,
So how long was that that whole thing with like starting with Eric and then like your Thriller?
so we started at 18. So that was a crazy thing because we started at like
Started too much.
That's
that.
pretty young.
Yeah.
So we started importing liquor at 18, and the crazy thing was like when we were reaching out to U.S. companies, legal drinking ages are 21, right? So we're 18 over here, and we're like, hey, like, you know, send us liquor, you know, and people would send us samples. We had, like, if you go to my basement now, we have like a bunch of sake from Japan, a bunch of other stuff, like a bunch of stuff like, you know, we were talking to companies, we'd get their like supplies down, like, you know, we were taste testing them. Is this going to work? Is that not going to work? And, you know, so 18, and then 21 is kind of like, that's like when I started getting involved in the family business. And that, like,
So from 18 to 21,
so that was all Liquor and Thriller
Yeah.
and Genesis Eon. That was like that era right there.
Crazy.
what did you learn the most in that 3 years? Because I feel like now that you mentioned your age, yeah, at a young age as entrepreneurs, we all go through that and like learn shit, right? Because you think you get like the whole world's yours, but then and then it's
down
like
quick.
Yeah, it does. Like the thing is when you do like napkin math, right? And that's kind of what Thriller was. We did the napkin math on it. And like, oh man, this thing's gonna make me money. Like, I'm gonna kill it here.
Yeah.
And it like the margins were there, everything was there. Like it was doing well. But the thing was, it's like warehousing, all those other like those costs that you don't really consider or think about, like
Storage and
like a holding cost?
holding costs, and that's what was like the killer there, right? Like if you weren't like pushing enough volume or stuff like that, so like, and that was the issue. Like when I'm bringing it down from like Austria, for me shipping cost wise, it would make sense for me to buy a container. But when it's here, storaging it, keeping it a container here gets expensive because it's alcohol, so you have to have it in government warehouse. So like government warehouse.
So it's AGLC.
And those fees are through the roof.
Crazy.
So it's like, okay, well, it made sense for me to bring that much quantity down, but once it's here, it was just
You have to move it as fast.
You have to move it
you have
yeah.
to move it faster. So then that starts, you know, eating away on
Your
everything,
profits
and everything, and then like, so that's the big thing I learned was like those hidden costs and stuff like that. Like, you know,
the true cost of actually doing business.
Yeah, you need to know like from shipping all the way to when it's in someone's hand what it's going to cost you. Otherwise, if you don't have those intermediate costs in there, then that's where you get screwed.
yeah.
Because at a young age too, that's all you really look at is like profits.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, this is how much it costs, is profits. But there is so much little details that come up that you don't even know when it comes to business, right? So
and that was like the big thing with Thriller was that, and just like
the holding costs and everything.
The holding costs and all that kind of stuff. Because with the other brands that me and Eric were doing, we weren't really taking care of those holding costs. Like we never had those holding costs because like a lot of those guys were local, they were smaller. So like a lot of BC companies, so they were able to they were sending like a pallet, 2 pallets, you know, so it was easier for that distribution.
Yeah, it was like
But,
ship direct.
Yeah,
essentially.
Yeah, where this was like, okay, well, I'm holding a lot more, right? And so that was the difference there. And then at around that same time when I kind of launched Thriller, that was when you know, my dad was like looking at like, you know, we should like
get into something.
Like my dad wanted to do a hotel,
Expand,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So I was looking. So we started looking at hotels and stuff like that, and that's when I kind of learned, like, how to go through financial documents, going through that kind of stuff, like, really.
So after that, that's when at the same time you guys were.
Because you had your real estate license at the same time.
I got my real estate license right out of high school.
Yeah.
So right out of high school, at that time it was like a 3-week course.
Yeah,
With, like,
yeah.
It's funny because like my brother-in-law, pretty much like, I was sleeping in my basement, come and wakes me up. Hey, I'm doing my real estate course. You come, like, you're not doing shit this summer anyways. Come do it with me, right?
Yeah, I remember you telling me that you were taking your real estate course, and I was like, that's crazy.
yeah. He's like, you're not doing anything anyways. Like, and he's like, I don't know anyone in the class. You could just sit there with me, And I'm like, okay, like,
Yeah.
And then that's how I ended up with my real estate license. It was like, at the time it was like 3 weeks.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Like 3-week
In
course.
class,
In
yeah.
class, 3-week course. Now it's like a lot bigger. It's like 3 modules, whatever you guys
I
have
think
to
it
go
takes
through.
up to 7 months, I think, just to finish.
So many more steps, right?
Yeah.
So you're so now you guys are in the process of looking at a hotel,
Yeah.
right? And then you guys got one.
Yeah.
I remember that too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's sweet.
Yeah. We got the hotel.
What year was that?
Yeah.
2009. 2009. This is when we took over.
Has it been 11 years?
Just after the recession.
Yeah, and
Crazy.
like, so the timing was crazy because like we just took it over, and that's actually when the recession just hit. So we took a big dip, and like I was 20, I was like 21, 22 at the time when I took it over.
Yeah.
So it was pretty crazy because I took over a staff of like 35, 40 people. Because we had a restaurant, bar, in the hotel itself. So
Yeah.
I ended up taking over like,
Everything.
hotel with it was very overwhelming, and like, but like you just kind of figure it out.
Yes.
You're just thrown in that situation. You just kind of figured it out, and that's kind of what happened with me. Like, my dad wasn't like, he's not computer savvy, nothing like that. So like,
You had to jump in there.
I'm the one that pretty much took over. I became the GM.
Yeah,
there
at 21.
At 21.
That's family business,
I'm
though.
thinking in my head, I'm like, what was I doing at 21? Like, shit.
Yeah.
That's a lot of responsibility at 21.
It was, man. It is. I remember like New Year's Eve, like something went down at the hotel. I had to like, whatever, I forget what party I was at, and I was like, okay, well, I'm leaving this party and I'm driving up to Airdrie because I got to deal with some stuff.
Was it at the Palliser we had that party? Because that was around 2009.
I'm not sure. I don't know if it's that first year,
I don't know.
but there's been many times where you get a phone call like 3-4 in the morning or something like that, or like, and you just, when you're general manager of a hotel, you got to get up and go deal with it, right?
Yeah.
So how was that being general manager at that age and learning? Because I remember there has been restaurants added in. I remember you guys got a car wash too, because that's where
At the same time.
me, Vikram,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Eric did the car wash.
Yeah, we had the we
Yeah.
did the car wash, I think, around the same time. So
Yep.
we did the car wash in Airdrie as well. It was
Yeah.
on Main Street.
And then and I also remember you guys started implementing restaurants in there. You guys opened restaurants. You guys got
Korean
a
restaurant.
horse betting.
Yeah. So it's
This
crazy.
BLTs
so
and
what
all
happened
that
was
stuff?
like, so when I took over the hotel, like I remember my first phone call with like a company, like, hey, like, can you load these rates up on like GDS? Can you do this and that? And they're using all this terminology I've never heard before. I was like, and I just writing down, taking notes. I'm like, yeah, no problem. We'll take care of that. And then I was like, sat in that chair and I was like, holy, like, what did I just get myself? Like, what am I doing here? And like, and then from there, like, honestly, like at that point, I just learned like, just ask questions. And I've never been like the person to be like, okay, like I know everything. I know this. Like at that point, that's when I started reaching out to people within like
For support.
Best Western or
Yeah.
people that I met, like other general managers and stuff like that, and just be like, hey, like, what does this mean? Like, what is this? Like, how do you do that? Like, how, like, these are my housekeepers. How many rooms should my housekeepers be cleaning? Like, this and that
Yeah.
kind of stuff. And like, it's like all that stuff is all new to me. Like, I've never had to deal with that, right? And then like, from us coming from a retail business where it's like, you know what, like if I'm stuck with inventory, you know what, I can put it on sale and get rid of it, to a business where like, if I don't sell that room today, I'm never going to see that money again.
Yeah.
Right. So the mindset was a little different from there too. And it was the other crazy, like, and then I remember the restaurant was leased. So just kind of when we took over, the guy from the restaurant kind of like, they weren't managing it well. The bar was a mess and everything like that. So I remember I was like, okay, we're kicking this guy out. Like, I'm taking over the restaurant. And then I took over the restaurant, and the bar, and then he never paid his staff. He never did this. And I was like, oh my God. And like, so then I was like 21 at the time. Like, I'm
trying to figure it out.
just trying to figure out how to, at the same time, run a bar. Like, how do I run this bar now? Like, how do I manage this bar? Like, you know what I mean? And like, so.
What wasn't Vikram the bartender there?
Vikram came later because Vikram was still younger then, right?
Oh yeah.
So like, Vikram did bartend there for a bit.
Vikram's his Gurkamal's little brother.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I just remember like, I ended up bringing Sid down.
Oh yeah,
One of my
Sid,
friends.
yeah.
Sid, because he was the only one I knew that had any bit of experience, and like Sid was like serving at like, you know, like he's
restaurant, right?
Restaurant, like he was at Swiss Chalet for such a long time. I was like, dude, just come here and serve, like at least just come serve, so I just know that like I know someone inside my bar. And like, and because like at the time I had to like, that was like at the same time, and that within a month I had to fire like my first person I've ever fired. Right, I was 21, I had to fire this like 45-year-old like, you know, woman. And she's like, you know, kind of like the bar manager at the time, and I had to like, you know, that was like my first person I had to fire. This like this little kid in there telling this like, you know, like, yo, like your services are no longer required, like, you know. It's just like, shit. It was crazy because I remember I ended up calling like my older cousin. I was like, yo, like, how do I fire someone? Like, what do I do? Because like, and that's one thing I learned.
It's scary the first time.
It is.
Do you remember your first?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, I do.
I was it was the cleaning company.
Yeah.
And they're like, fire her. I'm like, what? I'm like, I don't even know her. And they're like, call her up. She's not coming to work. She's not allowed to come. She wants to come, but don't let her come in. Just call her, tell her she's fired. So I remember I went to the restaurant next door. I think it was
Strathos?
Yeah, Strathos. I'm like, give me 3 shots here. I do 3 shots. I'm like, okay, fuck it. I called her. It's nervous, man, the first time.
Yeah.
It is scary. Sure. So I definitely know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But after a while, you know what you just realize is like that spot was not best for that person's growth either. And it was not good for your company either. And I think that's a good way to kind of look at it now. Is the way I look at it when I let go of people too now is like not something that I, you know, but I look at it as like, hey, what's best for the business?
Exactly.
And what's, you know, what's best for that person too? Because obviously they're not thriving here.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
They might like hate me or whatever at that moment, but later on, I'm sure they'll find something better for themselves.
Yeah, it's like a blessing in disguise.
Yeah.
It like life always goes on, and you make it such a big deal at that moment, but it's actually it's better for everyone.
Yeah.
Right. When you do that, and I think, the more you do business, you just realize like you get, what is it? You realize it's just like it's nothing personal.
Yeah.
It's just like, hey,
it's just business.
Yeah, we got to do this, and
because it comes down to building the team, right? Like it's really important, like the team that you're trying to build. If you want to grow, succeed, or whatever, like you want your business to be there, it's important to have the right people there, right?
Yeah.
And then sometimes those people hit plateaus, or sometimes they're not learning or growing. You know, like knowledge is power, but if you don't apply that knowledge, then what's worth it, right? So that's a lot of people like that. Like we put them through training courses, this, that, and they're still not changing their ways or whatever. Then it's like, okay, well, it's best to kind of like move on or something, right?
Yeah,
For sure.
Yeah.
Right now, you're still managing it, right? Or are you like? Because I feel like you're. Yeah.
I'm back managing. So I had a general manager again. I've had GMs there, so I'm back there managing now. COVID and stuff. It just makes sense for me to be there. And again, it's just I'm in that. The reason why I brought up. I'm back there rebuilding that team, right? So it's back to like, okay, how do we survive COVID? How do we do this? How do we like, you know, who's right fit, who's not? Like who's extra? Like I don't want to say weight, but like, you know, like. How do we slim? How do we, you know, optimize? And that's, you know, the crazy thing is in Alberta, I think a lot of companies have done that already. You know, a lot of people have gone through that. Like, how do I trim the fat? How do I like survive these last 5 years with oil prices being where they're at? And now with COVID too, like I think a lot of companies have learned that. Like, how do I?
It's prepared them.
It's prepared them, right? And then so you're just kind of like, now you've gone through it, so now. Those decisions that took you maybe a year or two to make before when oil kind of crashed, now you make those decisions a lot quicker. Now they're just like, you know what, I've gone through this, I know exactly what I need to do, so I'm just going to do it now. Then, you know, let the whole
comes with experience.
Yeah.
Because I know you're still at the Best Western, and also running the Dairy Queen, and are you also running around with like the liquor stores, building those? Because you actually got one. You got another liquor store last year, was that?
Yeah.
We helped I saw you there, and then like I feel like then I've seen you at Dairy Queen when we go visit. Then you're at the Best Western, right? So it's like,
I just have my
dude, where are you? Like
You have like a paper route for all
I
businesses that you go
I just do my daily routes. You know what I mean? It's just like it depends. Like sometimes it's like who needs where do I need to be, right? Like I'm sure like me and Dave like try to sit down for like lunch. I'm like, yo, I like Friday I'll know exactly what my week next week looks like. I don't know what my week's gonna look like next
100%.
week. I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what I'm doing right now. Like this year for me is like that cleansing year. It's like okay,
it's that what?
A cleansing year.
Oh, cleansing year. Yeah.
That's kind of what this year is going to be like. It's turning out to be, and is for me. Is like, hey, what isn't worth my time? What isn't worth this, right? And you know, just making those decisions. Like, okay, like who can manage that? Who can handle that better? Or, like, you know, because especially with the family too, man. Like, I don't have.
Oh yeah, you have
kids.
2 kids.
Like, you know, so
married.
You know.
I think this year, I like how you said the cleansing year. I listened to another podcast and they said it was like, this is the great pause year, right? To really reflect and see what is important and what is not, and like what you guys are going to be doing next year, right? So definitely like the cleanse. I like that too.
Yeah, it's like it was like a good time to just sit and focus on things because everybody else was doing the same thing.
Yeah.
And like you're like, hey, where can I optimize? Where can I streamline processes? Where can I improve? Where can I spend the money to allocate to get more business when things start to open up again?
Yeah.
So I actually enjoyed the COVID time myself.
Well, Dave's changed a lot since COVID. This guy's changed a lot. That's another podcast we could probably talk about, man.
It does give you a lot of time to like reflect, right?
It does.
That's what it did. Like you're forced to like sit at home
and
focus.
like,
focus. Yeah.
Well, if you're working literally all the time, right, and you have no time to actually stop and think because you're go, like, like you can't take a few steps back and pause and then like actually reflect on what is important and not, right? Because I realized for me, I never stopped working. I never had like a staycation. And when I realized, I'm like, I remember I was talking to Mel and I was like, I feel so guilty not working, you know? And it was like, you want some more? You're good?
It's too far away.
When I was like feeling guilty that I wasn't working during COVID, Mel was like, just take this time off. Yeah. And I was like, I am going to take this time off. And I'm not going to feel guilty. Yeah. And I don't care. Yeah. You know? And I was like, I didn't think about work, I think, for like 2 weeks. And yeah, it was like, I got connected more with myself and I was like, okay, now I know what I got to do. Now I know. And this podcast actually happened because of that, right? Yeah. So definitely take this time to cleanse and pause and just think, and definitely it's going to benefit yourself for sure in like the next years, right?
Yeah. Like less external distractions that are distracting you from the things that you actually want or need to do in life.
Yeah, no, for sure. And that's what it is. Like, it's like, what are you wasting your, like, even like your thoughts, right? Like sometimes you're like thinking about something like, you know, even work related, it's like such a small task, but it just takes up time, right? It just takes up like that energy from you. And it's like, can someone else just be dealing with this right now?
Yeah. Delegate
that, you know, and that's what it comes down back to, like, you know, and that's what this year's like, you know, cleansed out those things that I don't need to deal with. Who can deal with those things? You know, how do we go from there and how do we grow? Like, you know, and you know, figure out those things. Like, I think I was just talking the other day, is like, can you take your like 10-year plan and can you accelerate it and do it in a year? Like, what does that look like? You know?
Well, a lot of people right now too, and last year were like contracting their businesses, but it seems like you guys were wanting to expand your liquor business. Is that right? Or
yeah. So, but the thing is, like, how long did we work on that? Like, so that, like, for example, like that deal on Tuxedo, like it took us a while. Like, I think we talked about it almost like a year even before it even happened.
Yeah, like we went there to go talk, and I knew the landlords there, and then like it was kind of in the process, and then all of a sudden the one in the insurance company was leaving. They're like, hey, these guys, you guys interested? By the time that we started talking about that, it took us another 7 months.
Yeah.
So they're talking about
The new liquor store.
the new liquor store that they got last year.
Yeah.
And Dave assisted with that.
Yeah, so we helped them get a new liquor store in Tuxedo right beside the Italian supermarket. And like, the negotiations on a commercial deal take a long time just because it takes a lot of going back and forth, and then like getting the head lease signed and like negotiating all the prices and the op costs and everything like that. So it was pretty interesting to learn.
And that's the other thing, right? Like, it just, especially for like liquor stores, it's like to find a good location and to do those things, it takes a while. Like, and you have to be ready to like do those deals and close those transactions, right? Like if it, like, you know, you have to, and that's what like when me and Dave were kind of talking about, like kind of going through that, right? It's like, okay, Dave, let's focus on this one. Let's see if we can make this one happen, right? And then like even negotiating back and forth, it came to a point where like even in negotiations, like, you know what, like, let's just walk away. Like, you know, just like, you know, this is not making sense anymore. Like, you know, I'm ready here to sign the deal. Like, if like, you know, let's just walk away. Let's just see what happens, you know? And those are fun too, right? And
yeah, it was good. Like it was like one of my first commercial experiences, and it was a long process, but we got it done.
Yeah.
And it took a lot of back and forth between the landlord and you guys just to come to a common ground. And it was rewarding once we got it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. No, it was.
How many, like, because your whole family
so
is so they're BK liquor.
BK liquor, yeah.
So how I like to describe it is like a BK liquor is like a co-op of family-owned stores. So
and what does BK stand for?
so BK is Kullar. That's our grandfather.
That's sweet.
on my
Okay.
dad's side. Yeah,
It's like a legacy.
Legacy, yeah. So there's stories and stuff like he used to like bootleg, and some like, you know, he used to be like a fighter and wrestler back in the day and stuff like that. So there's a lot of cool stories about
Cool
it. So,
history,
yeah.
Yeah, so you guys, your family has different liquor stores, and they're all BK though.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
How was running the Dairy Queen?
It's, you know what? I learned a lot from Dairy Queen. That was like our first big like food venture, and like I've learned a lot from that place. I think everyone has their own experiences as whether or not they like the franchise business or they don't. Personally, looking back, I don't know if I would do a franchise again. For me, I like a little bit more options and controls of like which way I want to take my business. But
Is it very like strict? Is that what you mean with franchises, or?
yeah, like, you know, when you're going through like COVID or something like this, like, you know, other challenges, like, you know, you can't really like change the product lineup because you know you don't like something or something like that. You really want that, you really buy into like that franchise, right? So
you
like,
have no control what.
but you're paying them because you bought that franchise because you believe in that franchise,
of the
right?
name,
that name, of that success or whatever, right? You know, from my experience, I would look at it a little different. Like, you know, like I think personally, I think right now a lot of mom and pop places are like if you do them well and good, like, you know, they do really well, right? Or, you know, I think that's where the kind of the market is now, and it's kind of moving, right? So it's like,
I think the franchise
more
model
local.
is changing.
Yeah.
Like there's so many of them out there, and there's so many different ones, and then you're stuck paying like their royalties and their franchise fees and all that stuff. So it's like you're kind of in their control. But if you're doing it the way that you want to do it and run it, then like it's fully in your control as well.
Yeah. The good thing about the one thing I learned from Dairy Queen is like the processes and all that kind of stuff, how important they are, right? Like having that like that structure to your business. You know what I mean? Like,
because they make you go through training courses or something.
yeah, we went through lots of training. I think me and Vic spent almost like a month and a bit in like St. Albert. Training out there. We went to Toronto a couple of times.
Are those like mandatory courses you have to do?
Yeah, yeah. So to get a Dairy Queen, it's a lot. The process is big, but the way we got into Dairy Queen was a complete accident too, right? Like we weren't planning on getting into Dairy Queen. It just kind of happened. It was like, you know, we were
Can you share that story?
Yeah.
So you guys were looking at other
Yeah,
franchises before. I remember you showing me something.
Yeah, we kind of wanted to get, we were thinking about stepping away from liquor, and then but the thing was like we were gonna do another hotel, and so in that process we were looking. We had some land. We looked at some land up north. Land was big enough to do maybe a hotel and a strip mall. So we looked at the strip mall side, and we're like, okay, a fast food franchise here would be awesome. And the one that made sense was probably a Dairy Queen. And so we reached out to Dairy Queen. Dairy Queen's like, hey, yeah, we actually are looking for someone to open up something in that town as well. But we prefer owner operators, right? So we want an owner operator in a small town.
Owner operator is
Someone that owns and operates the business pretty much. So, sorry. So like,
so do you like buy it from them and then you own it, or
You own it and you run it yourself.
you run it
There
yourself. So
in a
like
small town.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So you won't hire like managers and like stuff like that to operate the business, the day-to-day business.
You're not buying the business and leaving it and
Yeah.
letting someone else. You're actually running it.
You're
yourself.
running it
Yeah.
yourself. So they're like, we're looking for an owner operator there. So we're like, okay, well, we could probably build it and just sell it. You know what I mean? And then we'll have a Dairy Queen in our
Like in that complex.
complex, and then we'll just sell off the Dairy Queen. So that was the original plan.
To build it, then just sell it,
Just
like
to,
flip
just
it.
like find someone in that process that wants to operate the Dairy Queen, and we'll just kind of give them the Dairy Queen, and sell them the Dairy Queen, and then we'd still have that Dairy Queen still there. So that was the idea behind the whole thing, and then we went through the process and everything. And you know what, Dairy Queen, there was like the franchise itself, like we actually kind of like fell in love with it. We liked it, it made sense. It was a lot different than anything else I've seen, like the royalty.
Did you look at other franchises or just Dairy Queen?
No, originally we had looked at franchises just in general. Like myself and Vic had looked at some franchises and stuff, and be like, hey, do we still want to venture into liquor? Do you want to kind of go towards food? Because like at the time, everyone in food was making, it seemed like tons of money. Like I said, like sometimes the grass looks greener on the other side, right? Like there is more money. The margins are better, and everything on the food side than it is in liquor. Liquor margins are really low, and so we were kind of like, okay, do we go that way? So we looked at a few stuff, a few things, and then when looked at Dairy Queen, I was like, man, like it's like a well-known brand. Everyone grows up with their Dairy Queen.
Yeah, the ice cream.
Yeah, and then that's kind of how we're like, okay, well, and then at that time, 2014, 15, that's when oil started coming down. So we're like, okay, the Vermilion, the hotel project, and it didn't make sense anymore. So at that time we saw money with Dairy Queen, and Dairy Queen's like, hey, like, we have an opportunity in Calgary. Do you guys want to take that opportunity, right? And then we looked at the spot and everything.
And this is the one in Sage Hill.
Sage Hill, yeah. The community was, I turned a little bit further away from development, right? Then so it was going to be like a growth area. So we ended up, doing the Dairy Queen there. We knew that it was going to take some time to grow it and stuff like that. But
For sure.
Yeah. But the amount of time and energy that food takes is completely different. So you it is owner operated. Like you do need to be there. Like it's not like, you know what I mean?
What do you mean by that? Like it takes long?
Well, so any restaurant anytime we did anything even at the hotel, right? The big thing there is like, the reason why I shut down a lot of the restaurant and I kept the bars open at the hotel too was is you need a management team there that understands food and beverage. You need a management team there that kind of does that, right? And if you can't put the right team in there, then it doesn't really make sense. Like every time I had a decent team there running the restaurant stuff, it did well, right? But again, you need food and beverage people. You can't have it's a different,
It's a different game.
It's a different game.
Well, the food turnover, I can't even imagine. That's why restaurants are really hard, right? Like someone has to keep buying the food, and the food doesn't.
Yeah, to make sure it doesn't go to waste and stuff, and the quality, keep the quality.
The quality is important, and the consistency, right? When you come in for, if you go in for your favorite spot for food, and it's always inconsistent, you're not going to go back, right?
Yeah, that's true.
So, service, everything, that's all important, right? And then for me, is okay, at the time, also, I think a lot of Albertans went through this too, is labor was such an issue. You couldn't find labor, you couldn't find kitchen staff, you couldn't find this staff. So like that was another issue at the hotel too, where you're like finding like, you know what, like,
Oh,
you know,
dude,
it's
the labor part too. I think, and employees.
yeah.
I don't think people understand how hard it is.
Yeah.
To get good employees.
To get good employees, the turnover rate, and
Yeah.
like I remember when I had that cleaning company, they raised the
minimum
wage.
Yeah.
Like $2.
Yeah. I think it's like
I don't-
$15 now.
$15.
Yeah,
$15.
And before
yeah.
it was like 13, and
I think it's even lower than that.
That's crazy.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I was like, holy, like all these things, WCB, like
Yeah.
all these things that you have to do with running a business.
Yeah.
Like it's not as easy as it looks on the front side.
No.
Right? And I think that's what I want people to realize is like businesses are hard to run,
Yeah.
right? Especially the back end.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. And that's where you got to make those decisions, right? And that's like, even with the restaurants that we kind of did at the
Yeah.
hotel, like
Yeah.
a lot of times it's like, you know what, like it's not bringing as much revenue. Or it's like, do I focus on the restaurant that's bringing in 20% of the revenue, or do I focus on the hotel side that's just breaking up 80% of my revenue, but the restaurant is taking 80% of my time? Do you know what I mean? So those are sometimes where I'm like, okay, I have to make those decisions. Like, you know what, like I don't want to deal with the restaurant. So because
It doesn't make sense to put your time in there.
Yeah, because a lot
Yeah.
of people in Airdrie always come out to me like, oh, like that restaurant, you guys shut it down. Like, yeah, like, but my bar's always been good. Like I love the bar. Like the bar does well. It does good there. But the restaurant's always been like one that I was like, you know what,
Yeah.
like. But now we have someone amazing there, like Ferrero's there, the Italian restaurant. They have amazing food and stuff. Like, and
Oh, so there's
you know,
there's another restaurant there.
yeah, so it's like and this is like a mom and pop spot. Like, so it's like,
I haven't been there in a while.
yeah,
What, did you guys have
yeah.
a car rental place there? or
Yeah, there was a car
Budget?
rental. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was Rent a Wreck.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was leased out.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That was a
Like,
good one too.
Yeah,
I didn't see that.
yeah. But it's funny, man. Go through a lot because we even did like the Korean restaurant there.
Yeah,
for a
I
bit.
went to-
Yeah,
that.
we went to the Korea. Yeah, I went there with you, Dave.
we went to
Yeah, yeah. The Korean restaurant was pretty.
Yeah, you had like the mayor of Airdrie there. Or something like that, right?
Yeah.
I remember.
Yeah, the Korean restaurant. Yeah. So it was just weird because at that time my entire kitchen staff was Korean.
Yeah.
And then my staff kept pushing me like, Girk, let's do a Korean restaurant. Let's do a Korean restaurant. Right? I was like, okay, like if we're gonna do this, right? Like I don't know how to cook Korean. Like I don't know how to do any of this stuff. But like they're like, yo, let's do it. And then we ended up doing the Korean restaurant. Right? It was just funny how it worked out. Like my entire kitchen staff was all Korean, and they're like, you know, I think a Korean restaurant would really do well. And the same thing, right? Like the team started flipping in the back, and then it became like, I'm like, okay, well, how do I go in the back and make like jibchi or like, you know,
Yeah.
like
Some bulgogi.
bulgogi, like I don't know how to make that stuff.
Those things for sure need to be owner like.
Yeah, those are owner.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's what
yeah.
I mean. Like that's why it's like important.
Because if you hire someone, and they leave,
Yeah,
Then you're
kind of
screwed.
screwed, right?
right? It's like, okay, well,
I only know how to make Indian food.
yeah.
We're serving
I barely know how to do that.
We're serving pizza at this Korean restaurant now.
yeah, yeah,
Just throw in those frozen pizzas, guys.
yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, so I guess what's the biggest lessons you've learned with running all these things? You've obviously done a lot of businesses, run a lot, like staff a lot of people. What's the biggest thing you've learned on how to deal with all of it?
I don't know. I feel like I'm still learning. It's like constant.
It never ends.
It's never
It never ends,
right?
yeah.
Like I don't know. The one thing that I've always taken away, like with when I met from the Best Western, I ended up meeting opened up a lot of doors, and I met a lot of people, and you realize like a lot of these companies, like I've met guys that have companies worth hundreds of millions of dollars, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you meet like all these other people, and like guys that own hundreds of hotels, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you just realize like a lot of these guys aren't much smarter than you. You know what I mean? There's not a huge difference, you know? Even like the guys like, you know, when you meet like politicians, you meet all these other types of people, and you realize like there's not a big difference between you and them, right? And it's just like effort and energy that you put into things that like, you know,
That makes a difference.
makes the difference, right? Yeah. That's the one big thing that I've like learned over time is just like, you know, regardless of age, because I did a lot of things that I find like you using age as an excuse it's just an excuse. Like, you know, I've done things at like a young age, and I don't think age was ever an issue. Like when you're in the room and you're talking to these people, you know, they'll listen to you if you know what you're talking about. Like they'll listen to you. You can. I've learned that. Like like, you know, I'm not afraid to go into a room and like hold my own kind of thing, because I've done a lot of that stuff. And even when I find like I meet someone that's even a little bit older than me or whatever, like I probably a lot of time sometimes I have more experience than they actually have too in like a lot of things, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, that's one thing. It's just like, you know, the person on the other side a lot of the time is not smarter than you, so it's like, you know.
But what I think too is like at the end of the day, everyone's trying to figure it out anyway.
Yeah.
Everyone doesn't really
Like even the adults.
really like even for us in real estate.
Yeah.
In like when we do deals, like we're trying to figure it out also, right? And it does come. You can't get the knowledge that everyone else has, and like, yeah, like it doesn't really matter.
The other thing too is like just having an open mind and just like listening to the other people too, right? Like it's funny where you can get advice from, you know what I mean? Like 100%. It's like just being open and just not being closed-minded to like having that willingness to like learn and that willingness to change when you learn something new.
People have such a hard time wanting to change and learn, I feel. Like, and that's what helps you grow, right? Change and like learning something new, right?
Adapting,
especially adapting. Everyone has to adapt to what's happening right now, right? Everyone, and the only way to adapt is if you learn and grow from your mistakes, right?
But you know what's, even through this COVID time, it's crazy how fast people have adapted. You know what I mean?
Yeah, dude.
Like when this first started, you're like, oh my god, we're all like, you know, now people like more and more people are more comfortable going out, meeting people, talking to people. You know, like it's just
life.
Just life. It's just like it's funny how humans just adapt to things like so quickly and like
it's like what like Charles Darwin said, survival of the fittest, right? So it's like whatever is the most fit at that time will be like the ones that survive. So you just gotta keep on adapting when life throws you curveballs.
I feel like we still have so much to talk about. Okay, what was your biggest failure and what did you learn from it?
I don't know, man. There's always been like failures here and there, man. But I've always like, I don't know. I wouldn't say like,
I don't like the word failure, but
like
biggest thing you learned from.
Yeah, like but the thing is like I found like even when I'm like failing at something or like something doesn't go right, there's always an opportunity in something, right? It's either like even recently like something never worked out, but that door opened up for like
something else,
right? Like I met someone out of that, or like a deal or something that never went through, or like trying to do a transaction and never went through, and then like you learn from it, and then you also like, how do I explain it? Like sometimes there's opportunities out of those failures, or sometimes you learn from those failures too. A lot of like even like when I look back at when we first did the hotel and stuff, like there's a tons of mistakes I made, but those mistakes cost us obviously money, but I learned from those mistakes, right? And I learned fast from those mistakes. When mistakes start costing you money, you learn really quickly.
You learn right
and you fix those mistakes really quickly, right? Yeah, and you adapt and you like, you know, make those changes.
Well, right? The biggest mistakes are like the biggest mistakes that happen, you learn the most from. Right?
And you never forget.
You'll never forget.
Sure. You'll never forget.
What's one thing that you feel like people don't talk about in business? Because you guys have so many businesses, and I feel like people just think it's like so easy to do business.
They don't talk about, like, you don't talk about enough.
Yeah.
Family businesses, they get tough too, right?
Yeah.
Like, because emotional decisions, right? That's a big part of like family businesses. A lot of emotions sometimes we get involved, and that's one thing. Like,
I guess I didn't even really think about that because like you're dealing with your parents, your brother.
Yeah.
I don't know your other cousins or families, right?
Yeah, for sure. And there's a lot of emotions that kind of go into it, and it's kind of trying to separate yourself. Like for me, I'm not as emotionally attached to, like, I have to detach myself, like, you know, when I'm making those business decisions, like, okay, whether or not you're going to buy that, sell that, whatever, like, you know, like you got to almost detach yourself from those emotionals, right? And make those decisions. That's one thing that's tough in a family business is like, you got to take in considerations everyone's emotions and stuff like that. And then sometimes, like, because of those things, you end up making bad decisions because because you can't detach yourself from those emotions, that you end up making a decision you probably wouldn't have made if it was a strictly business decision.
It's like black or white. You're kind of in this gray area when
Yeah.
you're dealing with like emotions and then business.
Do you feel like the older you're getting, though, the more less emotional decisions you're making, and more like, hey, yeah, like
Yes.
now I know from everything I've learned in the last 10 years, this is a better route for everyone.
Yeah, and that's what I find like this year's about for me too. Is like, okay, well, I'm like, if we have this podcast like next year, I think there'll be a lot of things that you'll see that I've changed.
Well, we're having this next year.
But like
this podcast is going on
like,
forever.
You know what I mean? Like I just like some decisions I think I'm gonna like hopefully they go well, right? The decisions that I'm making, that I'm trying to make right now, and that is just to disconnect us emotionally and like make it more like of a business. Like I talk to other friends that own like family businesses and stuff like that too, and you know, you got to you got to finally figure it out. Okay, like, are we going to maintain a family business, or are we going to start growing this thing? And you know, sometimes it's fine like to run just a normal family business, and you know, which is fine. Like, it comes to that point where you got to figure out, okay, well, am I going to turn this into like a real self-sufficient operating business that, you know, or
that I can step away from when I want to
do you know what I mean? Like, I don't expect like my kids to be running liquor stores. You know, I don't expect my kids to be running my businesses when I get older. Like, you know what I mean? So how does that look? You know, how do I create something that tomorrow, even like, I think when you're trying to like sell businesses and stuff too, right? When that becomes a whole different part of it when you're in that family business mindset too, right? Like, where a lot of your finances and everything else is tied into that. So when you get, and I've seen people like, there's this one deal that I was trying to make, and the guy owned a liquor store, and I was trying to buy his liquor store and move it to a different location, right? And the guy wasn't doing that well in his store, and I was like, man, like, I'm offering you way more than your place is worth, like, you know. And his thing was like, he's like, I know I'll never get offered the amount of money that you just offered me, but he's like, but what am I going to do after? He's like, if I sell this thing, what do I do? You know, that's what people, you just become stuck in that, like, you know, there's nothing else for me to do or something like that, right?
Especially at an older age.
Yeah, he's like, this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life, right? And I'm just going to stay here. Like, if I sell this place, and it's like, there's nothing for me to do.
And here you are, like, just sell it to me.
yeah.
Like,
Don't worry about that. Figure that out later.
You're like, just sell it to me and you can still work here.
yeah. But, yeah.
Are you comfortable sharing any future plans or goals with your family business, or you want to?
Yeah, like, I don't know, like, I would say I don't like to count my chickens before they hatch, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So right now it's just about like, okay, like Vic's no longer, like, he's moved on from kind of like the business right now. Okay, so what does that look like? You know, and then that's what it comes down to, like restructuring. You know, and like that's what I mean. Like right now for me, it's about building a team to make it more like where my parents are ready to, like, they're already at that age of retirement. Okay, so, you know, what does it look like when I'm already pretty much operating, but what does it look like with if we do expand? How does that look? If we stay the same, how does that look? What's kind of like, what do we need to,
what are your, like, you're trying to figure out what are your next steps for the whole thing?
And that's what I'm trying to figure out right now, right?
Yeah.
So it's just like, how do I build that team? How do I, you know, move forward, and what does that look like, right?
It sounds like you're planning for war.
yeah.
It's like a preemptive strike. Like, where am I going to be? What do I need to do? How are things going to operate? So it's like, it's pretty crazy.
It sounds like what you want in the next 10 years. Where you, because like you got to make some moves right now.
Yeah.
Right, in order to set yourself up.
Yeah.
Because you're just trying to figure out what's more important to you.
Yeah.
Like, and which businesses are.
For sure.
Right.
And then the other thing is, like, it's also important for me to spend time with my family too, right? So like, what's taking up too much time, or what doesn't deserve my time anymore, you know, and those kind of things. Because like, at the end of the day, I want to be there for my kids and stuff too, right? So
Yeah, work-life balance.
yeah.
Awesome. I think I got one more question for you. Someone getting into business in a franchise or like a hotel or liquor business, what's some advice or something you would tell them before they jump into that?
Yeah, like, because my big advice for people would be like, is when you're going, like, the one thing I learned from the family businesses is like, so when at a younger age and stuff, when I used to go work with my dad and stuff like that, was like, I would never get paid. You know what I mean? Dave probably knows this too. It's like working for your dad, like you don't get paid. Like I don't like. I got paid when I was like, when me and Eric did our things, and after that, like, even like working now, you know, like I don't expect a paycheck. I just work. You know what I mean? Yeah. And that's one big thing that, like, going into a business, starting a new business, is you're gonna have to realize really quick is like not to expect a paycheck. You know what I mean? So your time in like 3 years, all your time and energy, effort is going to go into starting this business, right? Don't expect a penny out of it. So where are you going to get that income from? Where are you going to get, like, do you have enough in savings? Do you have enough in this? Do you have enough in your rainy day fund? You know what I mean? Like, the bank might give you all your money, but at the end of the day, the bank's still going to want to get paid. If something goes wrong, what happens? Do you know what I mean? And going into it, like, I would not, any new, like, even Dairy Queen, the liquor store like that we just opened up, like there won't be nothing coming out of that thing for 3 to 5 years, right? Like, and that's just, we know that going in, right? So it's like, you got to be ready for that. Like, even like, you know, when you first start in real estate, you know what I mean? You're not going to start selling 20, 30 houses right off the bat. You're going to have to build to that, right? And like, what is your plan and how do you go from there? And I think that's a big thing a lot of people don't realize is, like, when they're getting into business, is that, like, how long it takes to actually see a return, how long it takes to actually, like, you know.
And that's actually, like, that's so true. People think you make money right away in business, and you got to prepare yourself for the first couple of years, and it's not all like, hey, let's start a business and we're getting paid right away. It's a grind.
It is.
And
same with us.
Same with us. All the companies I've started, like, it's a grind just to get it even going. Yeah. Right. And it tests you and it messes with your head, and like, definitely I think that's actually really good advice, is like, if you are going into business, prepare to not get paid. In 3 years or 2 years.
Expect to. Yeah. I think it's hard too, because if if you're coming from a 9 to 5 and you're like used to this paycheck every 2 weeks, and then you like go into something that it's like a new business, it's almost like a shock to you. You're like, oh shit, like I'm not getting paid. That's why a lot of people they get out of business, because they're not used to that. They're not willing to put in the effort to grind and also like deal with the like the effects of that, right? So it's like businesses don't survive if you aren't willing to put in the work, and you can't expect to get paid for every hour that you're putting into it, because sometimes you don't.
Oh, there are some deals where, you know, it takes so long to close, right? And for us, I know, even starting like as a realtor, it might take you 3 to 4 months to close your first deal. And then you're playing catch up to pay for all your expenses in the last 4 months, right? So,
and you don't get paid, and we don't even get paid until like a week or two after those people have moved in. Like, you know what I mean? So even when we close a deal, it doesn't mean we're getting paid. We're not getting paid until someone's actually in the house. No,
it's true. That's one of the big things. I learned that really quick when I got my real estate license. I got my real estate license like at that time, and just to keep my real estate license going, I was like paying, like, at the time it was like $500 a month. You know, I went to the brokerage and I was like, you know. And I was like, man, like, I was just working or trying to figure out ways to just pay my real estate license. You know? And it's like, what?
Dude, that's like probably 80% of realtors there, right?
Yeah. Even with us, like, you got to pay all your fees and all that stuff and all your dues, and you got to pay for your own lifestyle stuff as well too, like your mortgage or like whatever, your car or insurance. It's like, it adds up.
It adds up, man. And that was like a myth we talked about. Like, you can make a lot of money in real estate, and you also cannot, right? And I think that's, you know, not knocking on any brokerage models, but, you know, paying, you know, $1,200 a month is a lot, right? Just, and if you don't close the deal that month, it's $1,200 the next month, right? Right? That's not even including your gas, your meals, your you know,
just your living expenses.
It adds up, right? And you know, me and Dave just closed a deal that took about 2 years. You know, how many houses did we show them, man?
I want to say like 100 houses.
right? So
Yeah.
it does take a while. So
Yeah, that's like when I refer you guys people, and I'm like, "Yo, don't waste your time, man." Because I totally understand. I
Yeah.
was like, "Yo, don't waste your time.
That's so
if you're not
funny.
gonna, if you're not gonna buy a house, just tell them right now. Like,
Yeah,
you know."
that's so funny.
Yeah.
That's
Well-
true, too. Yeah, thanks for those referrals.
and that's something we've had to learn
Yeah.
with our time actually during COVID, where we actually screen so much more now
Yeah.
with buyers and sellers.
Yeah, that's one of our takeaways that we did during COVID was we created some forms and stuff like that.
We're like, yeah, if they're not past step 1, we're not showing you a house. You know, like if you're not pre-approved,
Yeah.
why are we looking at houses?
Yeah.
You know, definitely your time is important, and if you are going into business, Gurk, I do believe that is really good advice. You can't expect to make it like instantly, right?
yeah.
It's a long process.
Yeah.
It takes time, and there's a lot of tweaking that happens along with like as the
Yeah.
business goes, right? So, yeah, I think we'll leave it at that. Gurk, do you want to say any last things or any things before we go? Now that we have you here, any last words or anything?
No, I think thanks for having us or having me here.
Yeah.
You know,
And how can they
making
find
time
you on
and stuff like
Instagram? Like, what do you guys?
that. Instagram, at BK Liquor, Tuxedo, at BK Liquor. we have
So you
Instagrams for all of them. So
Yeah.
I'll start from the beginning. So it goes BK Liquor Tuxedo, BK Liquor Deer Run, and then Mandeep guys have BK Liquor Beaufort and BK Liquor down here on 37th Street, Westbrook Mall. You can also find us at Dairy Queen.
well, pretty much
Nolan
all
Hill.
the BK liquors, there's their families.
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
so it doesn't matter. And then you can
Dairy
also-
Queen in Sage Hill.
Dairy Queen Sage Hill,
Yeah.
and then Best Western Airdries. So if you, yeah,
Ask for the Kullar discount when you book at the Best Western.
yeah,
Just mention our name.
No, but honestly, you got to check out the restaurant up there is doing amazing.
Yeah, I wanna check it out.
The food's really good. He just got reviews in the paper and stuff as well, and it was like really good.
Oh, and this is a Italian restaurant in there.
Yeah, Italian, and they do the bar food as well. We
Okay.
have some like amazing subs and like what's it called? We're doing a Wagyu smoked meat sandwich, which is bomb. So good. Yeah.
I'm gonna come by.
Yeah.
Something we didn't even talk about is like you have BLTs in your
Yeah.
Best Western
Yeah,
too, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder how much money that brings in.
All right, guys.
Thanks for the Hennessy here. We're it's really good Hennessy. This is sponsored by BK Liquor, guys.